We're gonna kind of do a full-blown workout based around everything the scap can do with the orientation of the humerus in mind, right? So the shoulder and the scapula go together, right? Hence shoulder blade. But we need to have consideration for if our shoulder's internally rotated, can we protract, elevate, retract, depress? If we're an abduction, internally rotated, can we do the same thing? Can I be externally rotated and work my scap? Can I be in flexion and work my scap? Can I rotate my scap when I'm laying on my side? Can I rotate it up and down? So there's a lot of variability in what our scapula can do. And so we're gonna go over basically just a million variations of scapula cars to expose you to different lines of tissue, different planes of motion for whatever movement options you wanna do for your workout. Let's start with the quadruped scap car. I'm going over basic stuff. We're gonna go through protraction, elevation, retraction, depression. I want you irradiating tension. You and I had that discussion before the camera started going on about creating tension in cars, but tension in the scap car would be grabbing the ground, thinking about rotating a little bit, kind of locking. Think like deadlift cue, right? You're kind of locking, torquing, exactly. You're torquing, creating tension, then going through that. But I think it's really important to acknowledge that we're creating tension not just as we go to end range, but through the transition as well. Okay, it's very easy to own this. It's very easy to own this, but it's not easy to maintain tension through the whole thing. So let's go ahead and get a couple scap cars going in there. Talk about what you feel, what you don't feel. Can you create tension? And when we're doing scap cars in general, we always want to be separating spine from scapula. So I don't want him flexing his spine and curving it. I want the spine staying fixed. And then that way the scapula can kind of glide freely around the rib cage on the spine. So go ahead and find retraction for me. We have retraction, depression, protraction, open up, but we're not flexing the spine. So this is pulling and this is not what's curving. We're going into elevation. We're going into retraction and we're going into depression. Okay, so that is the four corners of your scap. I want us being a little bit more deliberate in grabbing the ground and creating tension. And I want us feeling contributions from the traps and lats with the pecs. Okay, so you have retraction. Go ahead and protract with tension. So you should feel that tension kind of transfer from here to our pec and our collarbone as you pull forward. And then retract again, but create tension. Feel the tension shift from progressive to regressive. And then go back into protraction. And so I think my point in going over this to start isn't necessarily just moving through range, but it's being deliberate in what's contracting through range, right? So go ahead and retract again, create tension, regressive squeezing. And then as you pull them open, feel how your pecs contribute to that, okay? So create tension and then squeeze the pecs as you protract the scap. And now go ahead and go into retraction one more time. Squeeze, 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 create tension. You're grabbing here, creating tension in the upper arm, and then depress. Depress more, you got a little bit more there. Yep, torque the arms, yep, create tension. And now protract from there and feel the pecs contribute to that. Shrug them up, you got it? It's hard, you're not done, you're not done. Depress, come on. Watch the spine. Yep, depress, create tension again. Protract from there. Open up, open up, open up. Full protraction, pec is contracted, right? Now elevate upward, feel the traps contributing to that. And then retract and feel your scapula contributing to that. Regressive shortening, and then depress. Squeeze as you come down, squeeze as you come down, and relax it. So to put that in a nutshell again, is that when people are doing scapular work, more often than not, they're kind of just lightly moving through that range, which is definitely better than nothing. But I'm trying to have you be deliberate with it in that every time my shoulder blade is gliding open, my pec is shortening. I'm squeezing my chest to pull this open. I'm squeezing my elevators, my upper traps to elevate. I'm squeezing my retractors and my depressors, and I'm not just sitting here moving through range. So being a little bit more deliberate, creating tension. Another way of doing a very similar position is you're gonna hold a block, and I want you thinking about crushing the block as you do it. So arms out in front of you. Let's talk about retraction first. You have my pen between your shoulder blades. The entire time, if I was here and I'm pulling you apart, you're fighting against me. I need you to be radiating the whole time. Now retract, but do not lose this tension. Now elevate. Now open. Don't lose the tension. Crush the block. Crush the block. Now depress. Good. Retract. Crush the block more. Good, elevate. So having a tactile tool like this is allowing him protract, keep going with it. is allowing him to irradiate tension and kind of have something to brace against. So you can have it closed chained where your hands are on the ground, or we can have it where he's pressing in against the yoga block to irradiate as much tension through his arms and his shoulders, thus getting a better stimulus out of his pecs and his traps that are contributing to that gliding motion we're looking for. Oh, retract, yep, come back up. And now elevate and then protract. And now let's come up in flexion a little bit. Same thing, head stays still though, right? Humerus is up towards your ears. Again, if I'm coming up to you, you're creating tension against the block. Go ahead and reach up to the roof. You're protracting, elevating, you're retracting, squeezing my pen between your shoulder blades, yep. Pushing against me here, push against me here, depress them. Depress the shoulder blades, arms don't fall, depress now. Now reach forward, protract, glide up my arm, elevate, shrug up, depress, retract, good, open from there. Yeah, you got it right there, yes. Elevate, good, keep going, retract, good, create tension, beautiful, don't let your arms fall. 2 more, retract, elevate, if you want to, yeah, reverse, open, depress, retract, don't lose the tension, don't let the arms fall. You kind of see how we can get a little bit more out of the scapula, a little bit more bang for your buck out of just like a basic scapula car. Okay, pecs contribution to it, traps contribution to it. Let's go ahead and go over internal and external rotation bias. So what we're gonna actually have you do is come over to the stretch cage over here. So what we're actually gonna do here is find end range ER, wherever your active ER is, right? I don't want you being here and then going all the way out there because you're not gonna be able to actually move anywhere. So you're gonna find end range ER. We're gonna place yourself on an immobile object without letting torso move at all. I want you thinking the same movement sequence, right? So that we are getting elevation, protraction, depression, retraction, and we're just challenging your scapula's movement with external rotation in mind. We'll do the same thing for internal rotation. Again, end range ER, right? You're not so far that you can't manage, right? Because if I have you externally rotated way more than you can exceed what you can do, we're gonna find that your elbow's gonna start swaying, right? Your torso is gonna start shifting. So staying strict to whatever you can manage.
Go on, stretch.
In your shoulder?
Yeah.
If you wanna get some stretch in your shoulder, by all means. You can make this like a 2-for-1, right? Where like you're getting some ER at length and moving your scap. I'm all for that, as long as it's still productive in your scap. Go ahead and create tension. Squeeze the bar, all right, we're irradiating. Once you're irradiating, spine's locked in, head up straighter, a little bit straighter, a little bit more neutral. Yep, now elevate. When you elevate, go into protraction. The people watching the video, his pecs should be shortening as he protracts his shoulder blade. Now depress, come down, retract. Get shoulder blade, depress more. Now open up, protract. Do you see how this elbow started swaying? Come back down. So because you're kind of too far in external rotation, your arms started coming up like this.
Sure.
Okay, so let's stay a little bit more strict. You adjusted yourself by shifting towards the bar a little bit more. Now go ahead and elevate. Let's go to retract. Back, down, depress. Protract, but that elbow stays still. Can you protract more? Good. Now elevate. Pull back. Keep irradiating, depress. Beautiful. Open up, squeeze the pec, elevate, retract, depress. Does that make sense? You kind of see how we can have a little bit more specificity in mind. And more often than not, somebody who struggles with external rotation in their shoulder will have a harder time moving their scapula in external rotation. It's gonna support that. Someone who struggles with internal rotation in the shoulder is gonna have a hard time moving their scapula with their shoulder internally rotated. We're gonna do the same thing for IR. Again, I'm giving you blocks because that way you can see where you cheat and where you don't cheat. But what I'm gonna have you do is contract, irradiate. You're gonna internally rotate, find some pec, find some front delt, all closing side stuff. And then you're gonna protract, elevate, retract, depress. But you could tell I already came out of IR. So I wanna make sure you're staying pretty true to whatever IR you have. You're constantly creating tension. And then as you do the set, we don't find yourself defaulting up to here. So face me. No, you can face me first. Yeah, elbow up to here, keeping yourself glued in IR. So you have internal rotation. Can you contract pec front delt? Squeeze more, irradiate that. Now that you're irradiating, can you elevate? Now retract. Now depress. Now protract. Keep the elbow up. Yep. Elevate. Retract. Depress. protract. You see how that works? It's a little bit different, right? Come inward a little bit more here, yep. So we're trying to maintain 90 degrees at the elbow too. Go ahead and elevate, retract, depress. Go in reverse now. Squeeze, elevate, forward, come down. Give me one or two more. So we're staying internally rotated at the humerus. We feel pec and front delt squeezing to drive the rotation of the upper arm. And all he's doing is moving his shoulder blade through the 4 quadrants as he's internally rotating his upper arm. And again, having a different training stimulus for the scapula relative to the position that the humerus is in. Does that make sense? Do you find that harder or easier than external rotation? Much easier. And you have a harder time with external rotation in your shoulder. Do you see that commonality? So for viewers, they don't know this, but Spencer has a harder time with external rotation rather than internal, and his scapula has a harder time moving when he's in ER. So those are other pieces of the puzzle that we're starting to put together so that his training is a little bit more productive and specific to his needs. And that's a common thing that you would see across the board with people who have shoulder limitations. Flip around, other side. Putting my hand here on his hand so that he doesn't find himself coming out of internal rotation, because that's gonna be a whole lot easier because he's not stressing end ranges of motion. So we're maintaining full internal rotation of his upper arm, and his scapula is still moving through whatever space he has in this specific dynamic. We're gonna go over now ER. So we did ER down here. We can do ER up here. And we're gonna put you in external rotation abduction. We did the same thing down here a moment ago. We're gonna come up here, and you're gonna do the same scap car, but in external rotation. Go ahead and think about elevation, not the arm, the scapula. Think elevation, retract, depress. Try protracting. Elevate, retract, depress. And so it's gonna look like he's not moving a whole lot, but that's kind of the point though. Just because it's not a lot of range of motion does not mean it's not significant. It's still significant range of motion. If we have scapular limitation in this plane, then that's the kind of thing that would limit us on some standard pressing movements or on some standard rowing movements. So again, the positioning he's training his scapula in is all relative to whatever training he's going to be doing for external tasks after this. And so if we're doing all overhead stuff today, this wouldn't be all that applicable. But if we're rowing and pressing on this plane of motion, then this is applicable to that specific workout. So there isn't one way to do this, and it's not black and white, it's very gray. Does that concept make sense? Yeah. Okay, flip it around. Let's go through a series of scapula cars out here. So now we have straight arm scap cars, right? So we just did it with arms bent. Arms bent would be way more pressing rowing movements. Think about what this would be. Chest flies, rear delt flies, right? So arms straight, fists. Let's start with neutral first, and then we're gonna go ahead and add rotation. So now reach out as far as you can, open, protract, elevate, retract, depress. Arms stay fairly still though. Imagine that you have rings in them, okay? Elevate, retract, depress, protract, open them up. Open them up, we're gliding these open. Run away from my hands more, run away from my hands more, yep. And now elevate. Retract, keep creating tension. Don't get lax, don't get lax, keep going. So elevate, protract, and so again, for the viewer's sake, as an actionable item, all we are doing is moving our scapula. We're irradiating tension through our arm as we do so, and we're creating a very specific stimuli in the orientation of the humerus relative to how the scapula is moving, with the idea being that this would be internal training, a warm-up for whatever task-based training that we're doing. If we're doing internal shoulder stuff in this position, the scapula should be trained previous to that. If we're doing external training stuff in various planes of motion, the scapula should be trained relative to that as well. Go ahead and let's have your arms like up here now. Think like a wide grip pull-up. Reach up, reach down. Protract, retract, elevate, depress. Open now.
I was just gonna say something like,
yeah, right there.
Really good for pull-ups.
Elevate, squeeze, tension, squeeze the balls, retract, depress, open, elevate. And so now we're gonna add more layers to this. External rotation, straight arm, reach out to your sides, not quite that far out, let's go here. Protract, elevate, retract, depress, full ER the whole time, creating tension. We're squeezing the ball. Open, elevate, don't let the arms move. retract, depress, protract. That right there, you feel that difference there. It's very easy to do this. I wanted that. Retract, depress, open. Much better. You feel that difference there. You didn't push into my hand that time. Elevate. One more time. Retract, depress, protract. Much better. Make sense? Last round, internal rotation. Same exact concepts, right? Just layers to this. What type of specificity can we provide as a novel stimulus, as a different stimulus that we wouldn't otherwise be getting? So, elevate, retract, depress, protract, elevate, retract, depress, protract, more. Watch your neck, you're bobbing your head a lot. Elevate, retract, depress. Make sense? You see how we can add a whole lot of layers to this, right? Drop the tennis balls. We're gonna do flexion now, hanging. Arms straight, retraction, protraction, elevation, retraction, depression. I want you thinking that if I'm hanging, I'm internally rotated. I can also do underhand and be externally rotated. So I'd be hanging externally rotated, retract, elevate, protract. Okay? Add some layers to that. This would be a lot harder because I want you thinking you're loading with your body weight. You could do this on a lat pull down as well. So we need the arms fixed. I think I would have my head be back though, and then retract, right there, elevate, protract. Nope, protract, open. Can you open more? That right there. Now depress, yup, retract. Not pulling, no elbows. Retract, that right there. So start just going up and down. Do a scap pull-up. A scap pull-up is kind of a way for you to learn to move your scap with your arm in flexion. You see how the elbows want to bend? When dislocate your shoulder from your scapula. Shrug up. That's it. Come back down. Shrug up. Come back down. Make sense? You have a huge tendency to wanting to pull. Stop using your shoulder so much. Let your scapula help you. Let's go back to over here, and I want to go over scapular rotation. So for scapular rotation, in this position, you're gonna rotate your humerus internally and feel your scapula upward rotate. And you're gonna externally rotate and feel your scapula downward rotate and tuck. So we went over all of the corners of your scapula, but we didn't do the upward and downward rotation component. So when we're doing a drill like that, we are adding layers to how your humerus is moving with your upper arm. But it's important to acknowledge that if we're in this position, you're not doing the same thing because gravity's pulling down on my arm and my scapula has to elevate and not upward rotate. It's two different things. So the position you're laying in, it's gonna have no effect on your arm, for gravity's gonna have no effect, so that the scapula can move freely with the humerus, okay? So let's have you lay here facing this way on your side. So again, he is in this position so that there's no gravity effect on his arm. So the scapula can glide upward as he internally rotates. Try to feel your scapula hike up, upward rotate. And then when you externally rotate, feel your scapula tucking and depressing. So for this drill, we're looking at the relationship between the two. And as we're getting a rotation in his upper arm, the scapula is upward rotating. And then when he externally rotates his upper arm, we're getting downward rotation. There's other setups we could do for scapular rotation, but this will probably be the most effective as a primer with the least demand imposed on the body so that we can drive some neurological awareness to this region so that you get a little bit more productivity out of your internal training. Does that concept make sense?
Yeah.
So learning to feel the scapula with the humerus. Here, let's do another one for a second. Let me grab you a band, stay put. Another scapular rotation drill that we can do. If we're talking scap rotation, having the arm relative to what the scapula is doing. So the humerus is externally rotated, and as I push above my head, my scapula is moving up with me. And as I come down, my scapula is downward rotating. So as I'm moving my humerus into flexion, my scapula isn't just hiking up, it's upward rotating. We can do the same thing in this position too. Okay, so it's again creating fluidity between the two joint structures so that they can move a little bit more productively. Externally rotate, maintain ER, keep the thumb. As you push up, right about, keep the arm at 90 degrees, right about there. and now come down.
Am I going up or am I going
Like that, you're going almost up, yeah, like that. But maintain the ER. You see the scapula tucks. As he comes up, the scapula is upward rotating, okay? So it's important to differentiate that this is not what's happening. It's upward rotating, not just elevating, because of the position his humerus is in. So right now, we're having his scapula do the upward and downward rotation while he's in external rotation, and he can be doing the same thing in reverse and being internally rotated and having the scapula move as well. How hard is that drill for you?
shoulder gets the burden.
You're losing the ER a little bit, more ER. And so for someone in Spencer's position, this is gonna be particularly hard because external rotation is the shortcoming of his. Go ahead and do the other side, give that side a break. And so again, for the viewers, his arm is elevated, his scapula is upward rotated, and as he comes down, there's a downward rotation. So it's not just depression, it's downward rotation. They're two different components of how our scapula moves. And so again, the idea is that we're stressing external rotation of his humerus. His scapula has to glide freely around the rib cage while there's demands being placed on his upper arm with the band providing resistance. Do you have any questions on scap stuff? We did a lot. There's literally a million different variations. All these zones of IR, all the zones of ER, arms bent, arms straight, different loading profiles, using a band to have the humerus in a certain position. So the list is endless, but I think this gives some people a handful of tools they can practice on and bring to light as, wow, I really suck at this one position. Maybe that's why this one exercise gives me a problem, why this muscle group is weak, why it doesn't develop, why it doesn't look as good. And then they can put pieces of the puzzle for their training program and kind of uncover some other stuff that they need. Yeah, thank you. That was awesome.